Hi Rose.
Hi.
So you're here today because we offer a position for the Organizational Development Manager.
Right.
And first, I would ask you if you could please walk me through your resume.
Of course. Well, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in both business management and psychology, and I'm currently studying industrial organizational psychology at the University of New Haven. And I've had numerous classes throughout my educational career that I think would be really helpful for me in this position. I've had a number of human resources classes as well as a number of general management classes. And on top of that, I've also done several internships. For example, about a year ago, I was working with a consulting firm, and I helped a large Fortune 500 company look at their performance appraisal system and help them modify that. And I'm currently working at a training organization, and I help to create customized training solutions for our clients.
Sounds very good. So maybe you can tell me a little bit more about your experience in creating trainings.
Of course. Well, I get to help in the process of creating all of our training programs. So, for example, right now we have a manufacturing client, and they came to us because they needed leadership training for their managers. So, at my company, we have a number of different modules that they were able to create, to take from and to create our training sessions. So, I was able to help take the correct modules for our training. And then once we had decided on the modules we were going to use, we had to modify them so that we made it specific to our company and specific to the manufacturing industry and their problems.
Very interesting. How did you know that there's a need for this particular program?
Okay, well, when they came to us, we sat down with the people who came and requested the training to do the initial needs assessment to figure out where the gaps were in the organization and to see where we needed to go in and help. And so we sat down and had that initial conversation. And then we did what's called a business improvement discussion. And that's where we sat down with the people who would actually be taking the training just to see if the problems that they saw were the same as what the people who would come to us saw, because sometimes the people who come to us, what they request isn't necessarily what they need. So we had to make sure everybody was on the same page by going through that initial needs analysis.
Okay, and how did you measure the success of the training program?
Well, myself and the other intern are responsible for generating all of our final reports, and these basically help to conclude and look at what we've done throughout the training session to see how effective it's been, and we do a final, basically a post-test to see the progress that's been made, and then we put that into this report after we've generated charts and graphs and put in the comments from the different participants of the training to see what's happened and to see the improvement that's been made.
Okay, and did you see any improvement?
Yes. Luckily, we always see improvement, so that's a good thing.
Okay, very good, interesting. My next question. In this position, you will be required to create, prepare, or carry out various presentations. Do you have any experience in giving public presentations?
Yes, well, as a graduate student in almost all of my courses, I end up doing presentations as part of our coursework. But also as an undergrad student, I was involved in a business club called SIFE, and as part of that, our career services director came to our club and asked us to prepare a financial literacy class for graduating seniors as part of a workshop. And I was chosen to give this presentation along with one other person. So we prepared this presentation. It was about an hour long. We had over 40 people in attendance, so the attendance was really high. It was great.
Okay, and how did you prepare for this presentation? I mean, you worked together with somebody else?
Yes, so we decided on what each of us was going to present on, and then we had to go and research the material because some of what I was presenting on I didn't necessarily know that much about, so I needed to become the expert so that when I was giving the presentation, I could actually help the people learn and take away what they needed to know from the presentation.
Okay, so you needed a lot of coordination skills.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, we also went back before we gave the presentation. We went to our club members and gave the talk first, and then we incorporated all of their feedback before we actually gave it.
Okay. As an organizational development manager, you also have to work with other leaders. what do you think? I don't know, maybe you had the chance to coordinate a group project? I mean, another one maybe?
Yes. Well, as part of that same club, I also helped to organize 3 business programs as part of an after-school club in conjunction with the United Way at 3 separate middle schools in the area. So I had to coordinate with the 3 separate United Way supervisors at each of the schools. And then on top of that, I was preparing the activities that the people in my organization were giving to these kids each week. So I had to teach the people in my organization how to present these activities and get everything approved from our supervisor and their supervisor, and make sure that everybody knew what they were doing and where they were going.
Okay, and what challenges did you face in this situation?
The biggest challenge was that it was 3 separate schools. So we had an end project that we wanted the kids to be able to complete. And so we had a series of activities lined up that were supposed to build up to our final project. But the problem was that sometimes the kids in the one school would get behind and they wouldn't necessarily understand the activity, while the kids in another school completely got that week's activity. So it was kind of an adjustment game to figure out how we could get everybody to the same spot at the end.
Okay, very interesting. If you think about another project and you have to deal with budgets and everything, what would you do if you fell behind your budget plan?
Okay. Well, hopefully I would never get into that position to begin with, because I do like to think that I'm an organized person. So beforehand, I would have talked with the different people involved in the project to figure out what they thought the budget was going to, what it would need to be, and I would try to prepare to kind of separate out the money so it wasn't just this huge pool of money, but to separate this funding is going here, this is going here, and creating all these little mini budgets just so that you didn't actually run over budget at the end. But if it did happen, I do think communication is key, so I would need to go back with the other people in the project to figure out what was going wrong, to see if there was a different vendor we could use that was cheaper, or to figure out if maybe we needed more people somewhere. So communication, I would say, is key.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Do you have any questions?
No, not right now.
Okay, perfect. So I think we approached the end of our interview, and
Okay.
I want to thank you again for taking the time to be here. And I think I will be in touch with you next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sue. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So I understand that you're interested in interviewing for the Assistant Director of Student Activities, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I did get a chance to look through your resume prior to you coming in today, but do you just kind of want to take me through, maybe highlight some things?
Sure. So I worked at Southern Connecticut State University from 2010 to 2011 as I was a student there. As a student worker, I worked with different clubs and organizations. We processed payments for trips. And I was also a student leader and an orientation ambassador. And then I will recently be graduating from University of New Haven in their IO psychology program. And I've been a graduate assistant there for the past 1.5 years in student activities.
Okay, do you want to tell me a little bit more about your graduate assistant role?
Sure. So I originally worked for the vice president before she left, so I did a lot of research in regards to the hurricane, when Hurricane Irene hit, and how the school can stay safe. And I did a lot of projects with her regarding spirituality and women's movements. And then I worked with the associate dean after she left. We did social norm campaigns. We created promotional items for New Haven students to realize what the norms of drinking are on campus. And then I moved into student activities, and I'm the Greek advisor for 14 fraternities and sororities. So I oversee their daily operations. I work with their headquarters, I work with their alumni, and I work with their chapter advisors. And I follow up on their volunteering, their donations. I attend their events. I help them plan and execute their events as well.
Okay, so it kind of sounds like you have experience in different facets within student activities, not just with one component. So you have Greek life, you have the planning and budgeting of that, and then you also have planning and allocating family week and things like that.
Right.
Okay, great. So, I mean, I'm sure as with your experience, you understand that we work largely with other departments, across campus to coordinate programs to encompass all of the students. So what steps do you take to foster interpersonal working relationships to sustain collaboration?
So I realized working on a campus how important it is to have relationships. So for example, over the past month, the Student Activities Office has been collaborating with the Office of Residential Life for a wellness initiative. Basically, the university has the same students, and it depends on what department is working with them and how we can collaborate to reach the same purpose. So we did wellness initiatives together, whether it was eating, prioritizing, time managing, sleeping patterns, educating them on. Also, athletics is a huge component. A lot of students that are athletes do not get involved in student activities because of the requirements that athletics sets forth. So it's always good to foster those partnerships and keep them going. So whether it's showing up and showing your spirit at an athletic game or doing some kind of community service with them really helps. So the fostering relationships is a huge asset because then that builds your attendance at events. It reaches out to different student populations and it gauges them to come back and it familiarizes them with campus.
Wow, excellent. So you're able to kind of have that interpersonal relationship with both students as well as professionally with your coworkers, both in your department and outside.
Absolutely.
Great, excellent. So I mean, as you know, as assistant instructor, you will probably meet with a lot of clubs and executive boards. I know that you mentioned you were involved with a lot of e-boards with the Greek Life, to help them develop and succeed. So, most of us have acted as a coach or a mentor at one time or another. So can you just describe to me your most memorable experience serving as someone's coach?
Sure. So I had two very different experiences. One was with a young female. She was president of her sorority, and they have it set forth by their nationals that they have to execute an annual banquet to raise awareness for domestic violence. So working with her was an absolute pleasure. She was motivated. She wanted to be there, so she arranged to meet with me on a weekly basis, and then I would follow up with her to see if she set up her budget, she set up her proposal, her presentation, request for funds. Together, I worked with her organization to make sure the work was delegated evenly, and then she would touch base with me if she was stressed out about something or pricing. So it was a very good relationship coaching-wise. A different relationship I had was Mayo, who was president of his fraternity, and I realized through the process you can meet with someone on a bi-weekly basis, but it doesn't mean that they're going to take action steps where they want to go. So that was very difficult.
Okay, so you kind of had a good experience as well as a more so negative experience. So maybe tell me about what you would do differently had you had that opportunity again.
I think I would hold a person more accountable, so walking away they would have something that they were accountable for. So for example, if we were changing the way something was structured, making him accountable for it, not just asking everyone for their input, saying this is what we're doing and I have to hold my executive board accountable for it, and having him set SMART goals and objectives of what he's going to follow through on, not just talking about it but more so doing.
Okay, and so you would be comfortable doing that same kind of role if you had subordinate staff under you as employees?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So obviously you're going to be responsible for planning educational events and programs with faculty, staff, as well as students. So can you just describe to me your most successful meeting that you've had where you were responsible for the planning?
Yeah, so this summer the assistant director left. She got a director position, so I was basically the interim, and I was in charge of Family Day, which was just one day, and then Welcome Week, which was 7 days of activities, morning, noon, and night. And it was successful because of the interpersonal relationships I fostered beforehand within departments. So it definitely paid off working with Residential Life because they knew who I was, and we've worked together on projects before.
Right.
So it was very much at ease working with them. And I worked with a $25,000 budget, and we also had a budget cut during the experience, so it was more monitoring money and making sure we were really investing in something worthwhile, along with getting students' input on what they wanted to do.
Okay, how did you determine who should attend these meetings, or where they would be held?
So my boss set forth a list of who would be invited, but I added on people depending on whether the event was held outside or inside to have someone from facilities there to approve it. I had, if a building manager was involved, they were asked to attend the meeting along with students that would be supervising the events in addition to the staff members.
Okay, so you kind of, again, fostered those interpersonal relationships
Mhm.
even with the facilities team and made sure to take precautions and ensure that they were involved in the process. Okay.
To make sure, the setup is right, that it could accommodate so many people, that's also important.
Excellent. Okay. So, what do you think made the meeting so successful?
I think everyone knew what was going on. Communication is key.
Mhm.
So I always communicated what would be happening at the next meeting, and I provided updates on a weekly basis, not an overbearing, but once a week I would summarize our minutes and what we were doing the next week, so we always had a focus.
Mhm.
And everyone was assigned a part in the welcome week, so everyone had something to report on.
Okay, great. So suppose you were responsible for a large-scale campus event that is getting behind or going over budget. I know that you said your budget was cut kind of mid-planning for Welcome Week and Family Day. So what steps would you take to take that project back into control?
It's always good to assess what you're investing in, so I would start there to see, what we're investing in and to see if we could get from a cheaper vendor or negotiate a new contract with someone. Just because you use the same company for the past 5 years doesn't mean that someone can underquote them.
Mhm.
So definitely looking for new partnerships. I would also assess if the money is really worth the spending. How many pizza parties do you need and how many, jumping things do you need outside, to see if students will really attend it. I know that we had, it was laser tag, and the feedback from students was that it was broken every time we invested in it. So that was really helpful.
Okay.
So it helped us save over $2,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would start with assessing, and then I always budget on an Excel sheet to see what has been paid and what hasn't been paid.
Mhm.
So then we know from there where we could spend or save money.
So it kind of sounds as though you take initiative and kind of pre-assess the what you've done in the past and ensure that satisfaction was found, which clearly
Yeah.
seemed as though that was the case. Okay, great. So, kind of to sum everything up, there are a lot of ways of staying current with trends within the higher education field. In what ways do you engage in the current trends or issues or developments?
Sure, so I'm part of a few different associations. This February I'm going to be in Nashville, Tennessee for the National Association of Campus Activities, NACA. I'm one of their graduate interns, so I'm in charge of the volunteer center.
Oh, wow.
So I get to meet people across the United States who come in, and I stay in trend with what they're doing and the activities on campuses, whether it's like late night or alternative programming or for programming boards. And it's also a good networking opportunity. In addition to that, I go to the Northeast Greek Leadership Association conference, and I present there every year. So I've been going for the past 3 years. I present with other members of universities, whether it's the Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life at Tufts or the Associate Director of Student Activities at Southern. I always make sure to collaborate with different people. And I also read the Chronicle and just stay in tune with what's going on.
So you're able to bring experiences from other universities, maybe their success stories, and try and implement them in your own.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, did you have any questions for me at all?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Today we're happy to have you. So you're interviewing for the apprenticeship manager at our AXA insurance company. So to start off, please tell me about your experience in personal recruitment.
Sure. So my first experience in personal recruiting was when I was assigned to the apprenticeship department during my own term as an AXA apprentice. And the previous apprenticeship manager at that time gave me the chance to conduct a placement test and to attend an assessment center. And it was really interesting for me to see everything from the other perspective. I first attended the placement test and the assessment center as an applicant, and I remember exactly how I felt. So the previous apprenticeship manager gave me the chance to gain my first recruiting experience and to understand why they do things in that way. So some months later, I was elected as the local representative of the youth and apprenticeship representation, and as a member of this group, we had a lot of tasks to do. So for example, we had to ensure a fair recruitment process, and we also introduced some changes. So the first change we made was to update the questions of the placement test because after a couple of years of using the old questions, applicants became too familiar with the questions and what to expect. And yeah, so we made some minor changes to the assessment center and changed, for example, the sequence of the tasks. And another experience I want to mention is I was studying in the US for my master's degree, and it was industrial and organizational psychology. And I decided to take an interview class as an elective for my first trimester. And in this class, we have learned all these kind of questions and the usage of the questions, and we also engaged in role games. So I became very familiar with interviews and the recruiting process.
That's great. Well, it's also great that your manager gave you the opportunity to become more familiar with recruiting and gave you the confidence to grow in the role as well. So moving forward, tell me about the most difficult recruiting situation you ever had.
I think I remember one situation. There was one assessment center for our apprenticeship shortly before I left Germany, and we were traveling making our final decision regarding one applicant. So we were 5 interviewers. It was the previous apprenticeship manager, 3 interviewers of different departments, and it was me in my role as a representative of the youth and apprenticeship representation. And the applicant, he applied for an insurance salesman apprenticeship, and he did everything really well, the placement test, the assessment center. But in the group exercise, we could see that he was really dominant, and when he had his self-presentation, I don't know how to explain, but he seemed to be a little bit unnatural, so his behavior seemed to reflect this, and we weren't really sure what we have to do.
So what did you do about this recruiting situation, and what was the end result of it?
Because he applied for an apprenticeship as a salesman, he would be working with our Salesforce department. So one of our interviews was from the Salesforce department, and so we asked him what we should do. And he said that the applicant looked very reliable and extremely self-confident, not unnaturally. And so we all discussed our notes again, and finally we agreed to offer the applicant the apprenticeship. And this situation was 2 years ago, and since he started, everybody seemed to be happy with him, and everybody likes him. His grades are very good, and I think we will never regret our decision.
Well, that's great that you worked as a team to recollect and revisit your notes on the matter too. So imagine you're an apprentice manager, and one of your apprentices has many hours of absenteeism without excuse. The organization has a general attendance policy for apprentices, but very little in the way of details about how to deal with absenteeism. What would you do?
Good question. First, I think I would try to find some precedent regarding handling absenteeism in the past. And I would also ask the supervisors of the department where the apprentice is currently working for. And finally, I think I would contact the school and ask the teachers if there's maybe some suspicious habit or anything. And finally, of course, I would invite the apprentice to my office and tell him or her that I've noticed that he or she has several hours of absenteeism. And I would ask what's the reason, and I hope that he or she would be honest with me and tell me the reason, because I really would try to help him. And for example, if there's the reason, I don't know, maybe he's ill or something like this, I would offer him extra hours and extra trainings. Or maybe he has a family problem or a psychological problem, I would offer to arrange an appointment with our therapist. And I really would try to create an atmosphere of trust, and so that the applicant is talking to me. And finally, I think I would also try to institute a role about how to deal with absenteeism, and add the rule to our official attendance policy.
That's great. And it's also important that you want to establish rapport with the people you work with too. Describe the last time you had to work on several tasks at once and had difficulty keeping track of all the things that needed to be done. What method or approach did you use to deal with all these demands?
Okay. I'm sure you read on my resume that I was working for nearly 3 years as personal assistant. And yeah, there were a lot of days when it was really, really challenging for me to keep all the things going at the same time. But I think the most challenging times were when I was filling in as personal assistant of the Lives and Sales Mathematics department, which is another department where I was working for. I had to fill in when the personal assistant of this department was on vacation. And I mean, my boss was always priority number one, but I also wanted to do my vacation replacement perfectly. And these days were really, really challenging because I had to answer calls for 4 people, 4 inboxes, 4 calendars, and in addition, my department had 90 employees and the mathematics department had 50 employees. So I had to take care of all these employees, and sometimes it was really, really challenging.
That sounds challenging with the amount of people there. What do you feel was the most difficult part of working on several things at once?
I think the most difficult part is to prioritize and to reprioritize. So, I mean, you have to be very, very flexible and think about what you do next and why you do it. And I mean, priorities can change, so you have to stay calm. And I mean, if you're stressed, you stress everybody else.
Right.
And I think prioritizing and to keep calm is the most important thing.
Tell me about the most innovative thing you have done on the job.
There's one thing I will never forget, and I'm really proud of this innovation. I was placed in our HR development department during my apprenticeship, and at AXA, I'm sure you know, we have an employee survey called Scope, and I mean, I was working for this department, and because I was working as well as representative of the youth and apprenticeship representation, I wanted to have something like this for our apprentices. And so I stepped into the office of our development manager and asked him if he could do something like this for our apprentices. And he was really, really happy about this. And finally we all sit together and changed a couple of questions so that we could use this survey for our apprentices. And we ran a test and we got some feedback from all apprentices in Germany, and it was really, really useful. So we changed
That's great.
things again, and since this time I was responsible for this survey for our apprentices, and I think we really did a good job.
It sounds like a great job. You're very innovative. And what were the advantages of this approach?
I think it is really a great opportunity for our apprentices to have this survey and to give us some feedback and if they like our apprentices. And I mean, for example, I remember one thing that the apprentices claimed about the prices of the food, and so we finally decided to offer special prices for apprentices so that they don't have to pay so much money for the food.
Great. Well, this comes to the end of our interview. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I think I don't have any questions at the moment.
Great. Well, we'll be in touch by the end of next week, and we'll speak to you then.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Thank
very
you.
much.
Nice to meet you too.
Decided to come in for the Associate Director of Career Services position.
Yes.
All right, are you ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I had a chance to look through your resume. Would you just want to really quick go over and highlight some of it?
Sure. So I graduated from SUNY Geneseo in New York in December of 2010. While there, I had internships in both the Office of Undergraduate Admissions as well as the Human Resource Office. From there, I went and worked in Disney World for a couple of months doing their Disney College programs. That was a really tremendous experience. From there, I went and started grad school at the University of New Haven, and I'm actually finishing up that graduate program in Industrial Organizational Psychology come March. And currently I am at Yale University in their Employee Services Office. It's a division of their Human Resources, and I'm really loving my experience there.
Oh, that's great. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of really good experience. Could you just go a little bit more into depth as to your experiences that you've had in higher education?
Absolutely. So while at the University of New Haven, I do have a graduate assistantship, and that is in the undergraduate admissions office. And there I kind of act as a pseudo counselor, if you will. So I do everything from reading applications to attending college fairs to providing information sessions, giving one-on-one sessions to students who are interested in coming to the university, as well as conducting admissions interviews. So it's kind of a whole lot of
Oh, great.
information.
Well, it sounds like you're getting a lot of really great exposure, though.
Absolutely.
A lot of different areas.
Mhm.
Well, here in our office, we frequently work with a lot of other departments on campus.
Mhm.
So what steps would you take to foster interpersonal working relationships?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I've quickly noticed while at the University of New Haven in their admissions office is to put on an open house for 500 plus students, which essentially equivalents to 1,500 people if they each bring their mother and father. You need a lot of force. So we are always trying to connect with the food services, we're trying to connect with student activities, we're trying to connect with career services, residential life, all these different departments on campus. We like them to be present at our open houses so that way we can really showcase what the university has to offer. So we are always looking to foster those interpersonal relationships, and even if it's just sending a quick email saying, you know, did you get notification about this meeting, or what's your feedback on having this at the open house as opposed to that. So it's always keeping in touch and having that follow-up, as well as taking the initiative to make that first call or to send that first email.
Oh, that's great. It sounds like you guys are really going out of your way to get everyone involved.
Yeah, it's a process.
That's good, though. All right, so at times you might also have to work in our office and conduct interviews with students just to help them with their interviewing skills.
Absolutely.
So what kind of experience do you have with conducting different interviews?
Okay, so like I said, at the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at the University of New Haven, I'm conducting admissions interviews from a selection standpoint in an academic setting. But in addition to that, I was an intern at Diesel this past spring from January to May, and there I recruited for interns. So I was essentially in charge of their entire internship program, and I recruited for 42 positions throughout the company, whether it's from wholesale to public relations to designers, you name it, I was recruiting for those internships. So I did everything from phone screenings to one-on-one interviews to actually organizing and facilitating the group interviews.
Okay. And did you ever have to create any of those interviews from scratch?
Yes, actually. So when I got there, I can't tell you the last time those job descriptions for the internships were last evaluated. So what I did was I did go to each of the supervisors and ask for a more updated listing of qualifications, as well as what they feel the internship requires of their specific department. So that way it's more in tune with that specific supervisor and not the one 5 years prior.
Right.
From there, I did develop specific interview guides for each of the positions. Some of the departments did have multiple positions, so please don't think I did it for 42 individually.
Okay.
So from there, I did create interviews based off of the job descriptions that I created recently.
Oh, that's good. All right. Now, something else you're going to be responsible for in our department would be to organize and attend different career fairs. Have you ever had to represent an organization that you've worked for?
Absolutely. So again, this brings me back to the University of New Haven. With our information sessions, considering I am essentially an admissions counselor, we do have to give information sessions to prospective students and their families, and that can be anywhere from 3 people to a group of about 25, depending on the day. And there we discuss any kind of information that you would like to know about the university. And in addition to that, I'm currently at Yale and in their employee services department, and it is a little bit of a different atmosphere as far as it's more human resources, but we need to know everything about their benefits, everything about their payroll, everything about their training. So you kind of have to know the essence of Yale University from an employee standpoint as well as an employer standpoint.
Okay.
And then my most fun experience was definitely when I was a tour guide at Geneseo for 1.5 years, where we just had to boast about the school, and it was one of my favorite things.
Oh, that's great. Now, how often did you actually go about giving those presentations?
So the information sessions that I do in the admissions office are about once a week. Over the summer, it was much more frequent than that, and especially leading into the fall as the counselors are all on travel. So that is about once a week, and I mean, at Yale, it's every day. So.
Oh, okay. So lots of experience then. Now, what was the largest group that you ever had to present for?
As a tour guide at Geneseo, I would say the largest group I've had to do is about 30 people. And the information session I just did recently, about last month, was actually for about 40 people. So that was probably my biggest and most challenging, I'd say. Because it had everybody from, this one wanted dental hygiene, but this one wanted psychology, but this one wanted engineering. So it wasn't like it was a room full of dental hygiene majors and I could only address that major. I had to kind of touch on everything that the university had to offer from each major's standpoint. So.
Oh, well, it sounds like you have a lot of experience, though. Now, suppose that you have a counselor who is scheduled to give one of those presentations, but they called in sick with just, say, like an hour's notice. How would you go about prepping for one of those presentations?
That has actually happened to me before,
Oh.
and it was before I had ever given one of the information sessions at the university, so I was very new, and basically my supervisor came in and said, "You're on at 10 o'clock," and it was, 9:10. Great. So what I did was I basically did what I had to, and I had been at the university for a couple of months prior to that, so I got to know more about the university as well. I'm a student. I'm a grad student, so I don't have the undergraduate experience, but I do know enough to get me by. And I just looked through the slides and tried to familiarize myself, and I'm very comfortable saying to an audience, you know what, bear with me. I'm a little bit new at this. And if there's a question that you have that I possibly don't have an answer to, I'd be happy to get back to you on that. So I would rather say that than give the wrong answer and then completely jeopardize one's application.
Okay, well that's a really great technique to use, though. All right, now, just going back, you had mentioned earlier that you are a student at UNH, so you've probably taken some career development and counseling courses.
Yes.
Okay. Could you just go over some of those topics that you've covered?
Oh yeah, we covered a lot of different topics as far as, how to utilize career assessment tools such as the Strong, the Hogan, the Myers-Briggs, and how you would go about putting those towards specific theories within career development, and how you can properly match somebody to their career based off of their high in social or their high in realism or their high in existentialism. One of those categories, and whether they are, kind of gives them an outline of what careers may suit them best. So I would be very comfortable utilizing those assessment tools to better evaluate and present a host of jobs rather than just spitballing and saying, well, how would you like to be a dentist today?
Okay, right. Right, so it sounds like you've definitely worked with a decent number of assessments then.
Yes, absolutely.
And how would you go about deciding which assessment to use and how to use that information?
Well, obviously it depends on how approachable the person is and how ready they are to actually approach a career, whether they're a senior or a junior, and also if they have any idea as to what avenue they want to go to. Some people have absolutely no idea which route they want to take, whether they want to go into the social sciences or whether they want to go into engineering. A lot of students don't know, and so depending on that, some inventories are largely related to social personalities or to more practical personalities. So dependent on that, as well as what area they want to go into, would probably determine which assessment to use and where to go from there.
Okay, that's great. Well, it sounds like you definitely are familiar with quite a few of them then. So now just one final question for you. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about updating your skills or knowledge just outside of the classroom. So what kind of informal activities or organizations are you a part of so that you can stay current?
Absolutely. So I am a member of SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, as well as I subscribe to the Chronicle in higher education, and I also am an avid LinkedIn user. So I subscribe to a lot of higher education blogs, and they are constantly sending out articles, and that leads me to more articles, which leads me to this website and this blog. So it's very interesting to see what others are up to and what other universities are doing to foster their career development centers and make them better, and what techniques they're using and the resources that they're providing to their students.
Okay. Well, that's great. It sounds like you definitely are doing quite a bit to stay current with all the new trends that are coming out. Well, that's good. You should keep doing that. All right. Did you have any questions for me
No.
this time?
I think we've pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I will be in touch with you within the next
Perfect.
couple of weeks.
Okay, I look forward to it.
Great.
Thank you.